Every day, businesses, nonprofits, and individuals shoot thousands of hours. I bet hundreds of thousands of hours of video for YouTube, websites, presentations, sales pieces. But according to Stockman, we're drowning in video, and most of it sucks. Great video gets watched. It gets passed around and recommended, giving it the power to influence, to inform, to share common experiences and build community. But bad video, well, that gets turned off fast. Unfortunately, knowing how to work a video camera doesn't make you a filmmaker any more than knowing how to cut with a scalpel makes you a surgeon. You need to know what works, and it's not about the quality of your equipment. You need to know how to make something an audience wants to watch. When he walks on the set, the Hollywood director doesn't give a second thought to the equipment. He's all about the film, how to tell a story that's entertaining, effective, ultimately that gets watched. Professional directors know that making great video has nothing to do with machines and everything to do with how you think about communicating to your audience. And that's what Stockman's book, How to Shoot Videos That Don't Suck, shows. It shows you how to engage that audience. Every chapter, this is cool, contains a concept that readers can practice the next time they pick up a video camera. The book provides the help you need, how to promote not how to promote your video, but how to make the video worth promoting. Steve Stockman is a producer, writer, and director of commercials, web videos, TV, and the award-winning MGM feature film 2 Weeks, starring Sally Field. In 10 years of teaching and consulting on film and video, he's discovered you can completely change someone's filmmaking ability in about 8 hours of instruction and practice, and that's the approach that he's put into How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. And I believe his book and his website, SteveStockman.com, that's Steve with a V, one word, SteveStockman.com, which has a great deal of the material in the book up on the website. I believe that it has a great deal of smart things to say, not just about shooting videos of your kids' parties or your nonprofit's new campaign or your company's new products, but also about the essential role of story in the movies that you see in theaters and watch at home. And I think everybody has something to gain from the next half hour. Welcome to Pacifica, Steve.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah. Now, I like people to get a feel for the people behind the ideas and the work that we talk about. So a little about your path to the work that you're doing these days.
I started getting into directing. I came out of radio. And when I left radio, I was in radio marketing, and I started doing TV commercials. And originally I started doing them for radio stations. That is, radio stations would advertise themselves on television.
Sure.
And that was kind of a specialty. And I did that all over the world for a bunch of years. And then moved out to L.A. and started branching off into working for other national advertisers, and did a feature and have a reality show that's debuting in April that I can't talk about.
Okay.
But that should be pretty interesting, and a bunch of other web and commercial projects, writing, all that stuff is going on. But I'll tell you how I came to the book in particular.
That was my next question. But wait, I want to ask this a little bit more. A little bit more.
All right.
So you started in radio, which obviously is going to have a little bit of interest perhaps to listeners. What were you doing in radio?
In radio, I started as a news personality. My first gig was at WCNY FM in Syracuse, New York, and I did the news. I, got the news from it was an NPR station. I got the NPR news, put it together, did the news breaks on a couple of talk shows, and then I went to Brown in Rhode Island, and I worked at WBRU, which is a commercial FM station. It's run by students, but it's like if KLOS was run by students. Huge radio station, earns millions of dollars a year, run by students.
Wow, kind of like NCAA football.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a huge education. And then I worked in Boston at WAAF, which is another rock station. Way back.
Okay. And then you said, okay, on air is one thing, but what moved you from on air to marketing?
This was a long time ago, right?
So you don't even remember?
No, I do remember exactly why I remember, because I was offered the morning show at a radio station called WCCC in Hartford, Connecticut, right after Howard Stern had left there. This was in 1980. And they offered me $275 a week. And I interviewed the same week at a radio station in Boston, and they said, we need a marketing director, and we'll give you $300 a week. And that was, now, of course, my friends who stayed in morning radio, who are still at it now make enormous sums of money, and are heard on multiple radio stations all over the country. But, at the time, honestly, I don't know if I was that great. I was a pretty good announcer, but I was not a great announcer.
Uh-huh. And did you have a sense you were a good marketer?
I knew I was a good marketer. I've kind of been a marketer since I used to count the cuts in commercials when I was 7.
Okay.
And I was aware of how they shelved things in supermarkets before I was 10. So marketing kind of is in the blood, and being a disc jockey, I loved it. And I stayed on the air after I went into marketing. I did some on-air stuff, and I might have gotten much better if I'd taken that morning show job in Hartford, Connecticut. But, on the other hand, following Howard Stern probably wasn't an easy trick.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I did want to get a little more of a feel for that. And then it makes sense. So you're marketing, and then you start directing commercials for radio stations. And I know you did many, and people have probably seen them and, not known they were Stockman Productions. And
yeah,
then
you don't get credits on commercials.
That's right. You don't. But then a few years ago, you did direct a feature film, which we talked about on this program at the time, and there was a happy coincidence there.
Your feature film role, you mean?
Yes.
You were terrific. You were brilliant.
Oh.
I'm surprised that you're still doing radio after that role.
Yeah. So, this was funny because I hadn't acted in several years, and when Steve, who is a longtime friend as well, did this production, he hired me, and it was fun. I mean,
and you can see you still in the trailer.
That's right. I do show up in the trailer.
If you go to iTunes or Netflix.
I show up in the trailer almost as long as I show up in the actual film.
No, I think a little longer. But yes, if you go to iTunes or Netflix and click on or IMDb and click on the 2 weeks trailer, in addition to seeing Sally Field act her heart out, you will see Terrence McNally in his role, and he's good.
Thank you. So 2 weeks is a rentable film that still has a life because it's about the end of life.
Yeah, it's about 4 adult siblings who come home to their mother's house for what they think are the last couple of days of her life, and she hangs on, and they end up stuck there together for 2 weeks, kind of waiting for her to die.
Right, and it would have been a cult hit if she'd have hung on for about 6-8 months. I think they'd have been killing each other.
It's actually had a great home video life. You know, it played in the theaters. It's just hard to get people to go see a movie about that topic.
Exactly.
As I learned.
Yeah.
But it played its brains out on Showtime, Lifetime, and rents very well. So it's out there.
Exactly. I mean, despite the fact that they don't fill the theaters to see films about that, when you decide, hey, I want to see a film about that because it's time for that happening in my family, there aren't too many, and yours is one of them. 2 weeks, I recommend it. So I'm Terrence McNally, and I'm speaking with writer-director Steve Stockman about his book, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. And you can learn more at stevestockman.com. Steve Stockman, one word, S-T-E-V-E, Stockman, STOCKMAN.com. Okay, so how did this book happen?
Well, I started teaching a course to kids at this camp called Summer Stars Camp for the Performing Arts, which I teach at every summer. It's a 2-week performing arts camp for underprivileged kids, 11 to 15. It's out on the East Coast in rural Massachusetts. And it's just a great camp. And I started teaching acting there and taught that for a couple of years. And then I started to develop this music video course. So we got a whole bunch of cameras, and we turned the kids into videographers. And at the time, this was a little more than a decade ago, I thought, wow, it's funny that these kids don't really know that much about video. They don't know how to take pictures. They don't know where to point the camera. It must be because these are disadvantaged youth who just aren't exposed to this kind of stuff. Well, it turns out, 2-3 years later, when there's a giant explosion of video on the web, that nobody knows this stuff. And I was completely wrong in my assumptions. But as you think about it, I mean, no one has ever been asked to really do video as a communications medium, except people like me, except directors. Those of us who make our living doing it are very specialized, and we know how it's done, and we've learned it or apprenticed or gone to film school or whatever. But everyone else, nobody does it, and until a couple years ago, that was absolutely normal. until a couple of years ago, there was no place to post your stuff on the web. You didn't have the expectation that someone would send you a video. So if you're sitting at home or in your car thinking, man, I'm stupid because I don't know that much about video either, it's normal. It's really, people are just waking up to the fact that we have to learn this stuff and we have to teach this stuff.
Your book, as I said in the intro, is a large number of very short chapters.
Yes.
Each one has, one idea, and at the end, a way to practice it. Was that obvious to you from the first time you decided to do this book?
It kind of was. I read a book that I really love called The War of Art by Steve Pressfield, who actually wrote the blurb on the cover of my book, which was darn nice of him because he's a much bigger author than I am.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, one of my questions I have planned refers to that blurb, so I'll do it. Well, let me just say, what Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, the film, as well as the book The War of Art, endorses your book by saying, like 2 years of film school in 248 pages.
Yeah. And that was nice.
Yeah. But, in your answer, what I wanted to say about that is, I think this book is like 2 years of film school in a way. In other words, whatever else is in film school textbooks, the fact that you've put it in bite-sized chunk, bite-sized chunk, bite-sized chunk, I think even if someone thinks that this is for making business videos or something like that, my guess is a young person, get this book, read it, practice it. They're ahead of a lot of film school.
Well, what's kind of funny is actually the educational market has discovered this book. I'm going in March to the Student Television Network's convention in Dallas to speak. And that's like middle school and high school students and all their teachers. It's like several thousand of them. And I get probably an email a week from a college or high school film department. Because people are, they're starting to teach this stuff in as early as second grade, rudimentary video skills. And I think it's important. I think, I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago, but it just seems to be that we all understand video because we grew up on it. And we know how it works and we understand how it communicates intuitively. From all this watching. But making it explicit turns out to be very interesting and a lot of fun to learn. And it's going to be very important to our children and our children's children to know how to do it, as important as, learning to write with a pen.
So I interrupted you on what Pressfield said. Have we covered it?
Yeah, we were talking about why I wrote it in short chapters. The War of Art, which is a great book.
I recommend it as well.
Stephen Pressfield, highly recommended. It's all told in very short chapters. And what I learned from reading it was how great it is to not have a book that's supposed to be helping you that's puffed up with hundreds of pages of here's why I did this and here are my observations and here's all the study. And then, you read some of these books and it's like there's one chapter of actual ideas and 12, 20-page chapters of filler. And
actually, I so agree. And as you know, hosting a show, I read a lot of books.
Yes.
So many books. And I don't mean to put down any of the authors, the wonderful authors that I've had on my show who have wonderful books, because that happens. But I get a lot of books that I don't end up inviting their authors on the show. First chapter, good. Got a new idea, got a new way of looking at something. Last chapter, often, second chapter I usually look at, something to do with it. In between, very often, it's what they had to write to make it a book.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, so what I wanted were two things. One was a book that would be super easy to understand and to follow. But the other thing is I think that most of the stuff that I've dealt with in the book is the kind of stuff where if you hear it once, you can just do it. You don't really have to practice.
So we're talking with Steve Stockman. We're talking about his book, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. And this book, as we've been saying, is good for you if you shoot video, if you want to actually make movies. It'd still be good to watch it. But it's good for anyone all along the continuum. Let's talk about briefly, and then I want to ask a big question about story. Because both of us care a lot about story. 2 or 3 things that you'd find in a chapter that are going to maybe make people go, oh, that makes sense.
Okay, I can give you 3 things that'll completely change the way you shoot video. Okay, first one, think in shots. So when we're watching television, like we're watching, Law and Order, and we watch that, we don't see 45 minutes of continuous footage. What we see is a quick shot of the judge banging the gavel. And then we see a shot of the lawyer at the bench whispering to his client. And then we see the client staring at someone in the jury box menacingly, right? We've told a complete story in three 3-second shots. 10 seconds have gone by and we already understand something's going on between the guy at the table and someone in the jury box. This is how we tell stories in film and video, and this is what we're used to seeing in film and video. In the olden days, when you had these Super 8 cameras, they used a little tiny spool of thread film. It was like 2 minutes long. Everybody shot very short shots because it would run out and it was a real pain in the butt to reload your camera. So you'd get a short shot of Aunt Rose waving at the camera like she hadn't seen another human being in 10 years. You get a quick shot of the turkey on the table, and then, you get a shot of kids playing and you're done. Now, though, my iPhone will record 8 hours of footage in a row at high def, And so people just start their cameras, whether it's their iPhone or their still camera or whatever, and they just roll it. Well, nobody wants to watch that. If you shoot in real time, you need another lifetime to watch the footage.
And what real time means is if you shoot and what is on the screen is taking time, the same time it takes to happen in real life, well, that's real time, and it takes a real hour to watch an hour of that reality, whereas shoot it in shots, edit it, you compress that hour or a day or a month into a few minutes, but it has story and it has power.
Right. And if you think in shots and you shoot that way, most of the time, especially for home video, you'll just be able to spit that video right out and it'll look like a movie.
Would the first thing to do if you want to begin to think in shots, Steve Stockman, is tonight when you're watching TV or the next time you're in a movie, notice shots?
Sure. I would even say, pick up your iPhone or your still camera that shoots video that you may not have even realized shoots video, or your pocket video camera or whatever you have at home, and just play with it. But point at something, shoot it for like 10 seconds, and then point at something else and see how that looks when you're done.
Yeah, so what you're saying is what people may have been tending to do was to shoot in scenes.
Yeah. Just letting it roll, moving the camera.
I come in, I talk to you, we have an interaction, there's a bit of a conflict zone, you shoot the whole thing, which actually is not unlike the way early films did, when what they did was they turned a camera, which was a very bulky thing. We're talking about the early days of the film industry, and they shot plays.
Yes.
And so what people tend to do, they did it first time, people do it first time, but what you're saying is don't think about the scene, don't think about shots. Okay, right. Number two,
don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. Most of what we care about when we shoot, especially home video, but any web video, is the people. A web video, most people are going to watch either on their smartphone or on a computer screen that's 20 inches or 30 inches wide if they've got a giant one.
And that's if they even go to full screen.
Yes.
If many of the things you're going to put up on YouTube, people are going to watch it in that. What is it? It's about 3 inches by 3 inches.
Right. So if you're shooting Avatar, and you're going for the beautiful foliage in whatever you're shooting, no one's going to be able to see it because it can be little teeny tiny on your screen. And it's going to look good to you, to your eyes, but when you get it on the web, it's going to look like crap. So you want to focus on people, and you don't want to shoot until you see the whites of their eyes, by which I mean literally be close enough to people so that you can see the white ring around their iris in your viewfinder. And if you're close enough to see the whites of their eyes, then 2 things will happen. Maybe, let me say 3 things will happen. One is you'll know that you're close enough to get all the emotion and expression that happens in the upper part of our faces. That doesn't happen, we speak with our mouths, but our eyes are the ones that tell us whether we're telling the truth or not.
Right.
Whether we mean what we're saying or not. How we feel after we've finished saying something and we're watching someone else's reaction. That's all up above the lips, in how our eyes move and how tense our foreheads are and all that.
And let me just say, because I think this is where you're going, is that we instinctively, as humans and as animals, read that stuff and read it very well, even if we don't think about it.
Massive amount of information up there. Yeah. And so you'll see that if you're close enough to see the whites of their eyes. The second thing is that, especially again for home video, a lot of what we're shooting for is memories, and memories of people are in their faces. No one's face is the same from year to year. If you shoot your 4-year-old, if you just shot your 4-year-old this Christmas, you know that 4-year-old is not going to look the same next Christmas. Just not going to happen. And people come and go from our lives for various reasons. We want to remember them. And I've had this experience in my own video of watching and going, oh my God, why didn't I get closer to her? I wish I could see what she really looked like. And you don't want to have that experience. The third thing is about staying close. There's no such thing as a Zoom microphone. So if you're not 3 feet away from the people and you're recording with the microphone on your camera, it's going to sound like garbage if you're too far away.
Now, this is one that I bet people haven't thought about, although when they watch stuff and they go, how come I can't hear him, they've thought about it. But yes, that when you're shooting with professional equipment and sound is separate from picture, fine. But most of us, an awful lot of the time, all that facility that we've gotten now to put things up quickly, the mic is in the camera.
Yeah, and 3 feet away is as far away as it's going to get. The mics, they have these automatic gain circuits. So what it means is that they take sound and they're going to blow it up or make it quieter to match a constant level so that one shot isn't super loud and one shot isn't super soft. So if they're hearing your voice clearly and cleanly, they're going to raise the voice to that level. If there's noise around your voice, like room echo or air conditioner noise or whatever, they're going to blow that up too. And that's why you play back a video and people sound echoey and hollow. In a room, we have stereo ears and a brain. We don't hear that echoey, hollow sound. But in a microphone, it's monaural and it doesn't have a brain. It blows all that up. And
right.
It becomes incredibly annoying.
Very good. 3.
The third one is to treat your video camera like a still camera. So what I mean by that is, with video cameras, we tend to hold our video camera at chest height and we walk around and we just point it wherever we're pointing it and it wanders all over the place. With a still camera, we point, we look through the viewfinder to see that we're looking at something important that we actually wanted to take a picture of, and then we click. So what I'm saying with your video camera is pretend it's a still camera. Point it, compose the picture, look at what you've got, make sure it's got a person and you can see the whites of their eyes. Click it on for the 10 seconds to shoot a short shot.
Because remember, you're shooting shots, not scenes.
You bet. And then click it off and then move the camera somewhere else. So that, these are guidelines, not rules. When you get really good, you may want to screw with it. But if you want your video to be instantly better, keep the camera stable and focused on something important every time you roll for just a short period of a time.
So 2 things you're not doing when you do that. One is you are not moving the camera, which feels very comfortable and feels natural, and you're looking in that video screen and it looks fine to you.
Right.
That's different. It's like the difference between when you're the driver and when you're the passenger.
Right.
You go around curves as the driver, you're fine. As the passenger, you get sick to your stomach. Think about that when you're shooting.
Exactly.
The other thing is, you don't want to, even though you always have, or in most cameras have the ability to zoom, don't.
Yes. And I would say, the quick 4th rule that you'll remember, even though you only asked for 3, this is a bonus one. Bonus rule, don't use the zoom at all.
Right. That's it.
Ever.
Exactly.
Just zoom with your feet. Walk close to whatever it is you're trying to shoot. Very
good. I'm Terrence McNally. I'm speaking with writer-director Steve Stockman about his book, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. And a lot of you probably either got new smartphones or new cameras or little flips or bloggies or something over Christmas. And this will correct the mistakes you've been making for the last week. You can learn more at stevestockman.com. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes, maybe a little less. I wanted to jump, and you and I have talked about this off mic, to I know that ultimately all those shots you're talking about should tell a story, and that story is very important to the most rudimentary videos and to the best motion pictures. And as I often say, story is also really important to a society. And I have this sense, this is a big switch we're making here, I have a sense that we've got to change the story that Americans tell themselves. Mm-hmm. That there's a narrative that's been going on since I've been born, which was shortly after World War II, that the United States has always told itself a story that it was ever on the rise, that it was unique in terms of its power and its mission, and that it was carrying civilization's arrow, as the first democracy and so on. And the story since World War II, we're the best, most powerful, most financially and economically successful, as well as the most honorable of nations. From this follows we have the best economy, the best healthcare system, the best education, the best military, all that. Much of this is no longer true. And yet the story, still, that's kind of the story. So you're either telling the story and you're cheating, or you're not telling the story and you're being accused of hating America or something. How is America going to come up with a story that actually deals with the reality of who we are in the world these days? And you got 3 minutes.
That it's a really interesting question. My sense is that the story needs to switch from general to individual. I mean, as you're talking about that, what I'm hearing is the story of a country, right? And I understand that that's deeply rooted in our history, and we all know those stories. But to change that narrative and make it more useful, if it were my movie, I would be directing the story of individuals. So my question is, if you want to show how creativity and optimism triumph in America, rather than talking about the big country, which is a nebulous and amorphous thing that doesn't do us a whole lot of good, why don't we follow the story of an individual, an entrepreneur who figures out how to do something that helps people or that really sells well or that really changes the world in a positive way? Let's see the story of their struggle and their triumph.
In some sense, the way the nation has been captured by the story of Steve Jobs.
Sure, exactly right. Let's see the story of what
an adopted kid becomes.
Adopto-Americans.
Yeah.
So, but let's see the stories of smart people finding real world solutions and answers. If you talk, I've seen your website and talked to you enough about a world that just might work. If you focus on the stories of people's real journeys and solutions and make those stories of individuals stories that are exciting and entertaining, then I think you can do a lot toward giving people real life examples of how things could be going for them that will make them less dependent on kind of a hoked up national narrative and more inspired by a real story of a real person doing something of value to themselves and the country.
Thank you. I mean, I made you do that very quickly. And by the way, that is why we always start my interviews with something about your path. Mm-hmm. What I learned very early when I had been doing this show a few weeks and I was interviewing some big deal, that I'd only heard before on Terry Gross or something, was that if I asked them something personal, remember a mentor, remember a turning point, remember a decision, and they got into their personal self, it affected the rest of the interview, and that's what I've lived by ever since. So, the book is How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. The website is Steve Stockman, STEVESTOCKMAN, SteveStockman.com. You can listen to this week's conversations and many others anytime during the week by linking to the podcast. You can do that at my website or at iTunes. The website is TerrenceMcNally, one word, .net, TerrenceMcNally.net, or aworldthatjustmightwork.com. They're the same website. And you can sign up at iTunes or at my site to have it delivered to you weekly. You can sign up at my site or by emailing me at TEMcNally, TEMCNALLY, at mac.com to get a weekly announcement telling you who's going to be on and what we're going to talk about. The program will be archived for the next 90 days at kpfk.org. Check audio archives and scroll down by date and time. Finally, thank you to my earlier guest, Kathleen Turner, and Lou DeVos, and to Steve Stockman. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Happy New Year, you guys.